everyone, and welcome to my presentation on George Orwell's novel 1984. This book is much more than just a story. It serves a warning about the dangers of constant surveillance, powerful propaganda, and totalitarian regimes. Although it was written in 1949, its message remains very relevant today, especially in a world where modern technology tracks over every move. Before we dive deeper, here's a brief outline of what we'll cover. First, we'll look at the three superstates and the constant state of war that defines them. Then, we'll explore how the government shapes society and reinforces total control. Afterwards, we are going to examine the tactics of the ministries and the role they play in manipulating the citizens. Furthermore, we are going to discuss two major characters along with their struggles. And finally, we'll connect these themes to our contemporary world, highlighting why Orwell's warning still matters. Let's go. 1984 takes place in a superstate called Oceania, and I'd like to start by showing you a quick map of what this fictional world looks like. Picture a globe divided into three massive territories: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia, that are locked up in an ongoing state of war. Their borders keep shifting in a weird way, so it's never truly clear who's fighting whom. But the main takeaway is that there's always a conflict, always an enemy, and always a reason for citizens to feel fearful and dependent on the government's protection. As we're speaking of government, the one in Oceania is a bit special. It's dominated by the party, a totalitarian force led by the overseeing figure known as Big Brother. And no, I'm not talking about the TV show. In Oceania, there's no real freedom, because the party watches every action through devices known as telescreens. These screens do not only show propaganda, but also record every movement and conversation. As we look closer at how the party maintains its power, we see the role of INCSOC, the ideology that shapes people's thoughts and actions. The party uses several methods to control not only people's behavior, but also their minds. The key idea here is doublethink, which means believing two contradictory ideas at the same time. Examples of this appear in slogans like "War is peace," "Freedom is slavery," and "Ignorance is strength," which make no sense logically but must be accepted without question. Another method is newspeak, a language specially created to reduce the number of words people can use. By removing or simplifying words, the party aims to eliminate even the possibility of rebellious thoughts. Furthermore, the party is organized into four ministries with names that sound positive but are actually ironic. The Ministry of Truth, for instance, is in charge of rewriting past records so that history always matches the party's current version of events. Through these endless edits, the party effectively controls both the present and the past. In addition, the Ministry of Peace manages continuous warfare, while the Ministry of Law deals with punishment, torture, and so-called re-education. Lastly, the Ministry of Plenty regulates the distribution of resources to keep people in a constant state of need. All of these ministries work together to ensure that no area of life is free from the party's influence. As we dive deeper into this structure of Oceania, it's important to understand how the party controls society. The population is divided into three distinct groups as shown on this diagram. At the top, we have the inner party, which represents about 2% of the population. This elite group holds all the power and makes decisions that shape the lives of everyone else. They live in luxury compared to the rest of society. Next is the outer party, making up around 13% of the population. They serve the inner party, carrying out its orders, but they are constantly monitored and live under strict rules. Finally, the majority of the population, 85%, are proles. The party views them as unimportant and keeps them distracted with cheap entertainment and basic needs. Unlike the outer party, they are not heavily monitored because the party believes they lack the potential to rebel. And that leads us to our main protagonist, Winston Smith, who is part of the outer party and works at the Ministry of Truth. His job involves revising old newspaper articles so that every record supports the official party line. Despite this role, Winston secretly hates the party and starts writing down his real thoughts in a hidden diary, an act considered a severe crime in Oceania. Throughout the story, his internal conflict grows stronger, and he becomes more daring in his opposition. Eventually, Winston meets Julia, another member of the outer party, who also despises the regime, but hides her true feelings. Their relationship becomes an act of rebellion, because real personal connections are forbidden by the party. Unfortunately, in a society where every moment is monitored, it is only a matter of time before Winston and Julia are discovered. George Orwell's message is clear. Oppressive regimes often begin with lies, the manipulation of information, and subtle psychological control. Today, our smartphones and social media platforms may act like modern telescreens, constantly recording our data and shaping our opinions with personalized feeds and ads. While these tools are not necessarily evil, they can blur the line between fact and fiction if we do not remain critical and protect our freedom to think independently. Just like a few days ago, when Alice Weidel retweeted an obvious fake account of Karl Lauterbach, claiming he had apologized to her for all the victims of the vaccine. We were shown how quickly misinformation can spread and be weaponized, especially if you're not smart enough to check the credibility, no comment. Lauterbach himself later exposed the tweet as a deliberate deception, also mentioning Orwell's dystopia. Lies and manipulation are often the first steps towards controlling public opinion and eroding trust in truth. In conclusion, 1984 is not just another novel, it's a strong reminder to stay alert and question the systems that influence our lives. If you have never read it, I encourage you to do so and think carefully about Orwell's warnings. After all, Big Brother might still be watching, and we should always be aware of how easily our truths can be manipulated. Thanks for watching.